Hello, everybody. My name is Sophie Applin, and I am the Assistant Director for Pine Reads Review, a young adult literary publication focusing on uplifting diverse, debut, and established authors. And today I have two lovely guests joining me from Lawley Publishing. Would you mind introducing yourselves?
Sure. I'm Carrie Turley, and this is Lara Law.
Hi
and we are Lawley Publishing.
Lovely. So for those of you who, obviously this is on Zoom, so we don't have a live audience, but for those watching who may not be aware of Lawley Publishing, could you tell me a little bit about what you're all about, what type of books you publish, and how you got started?
Ooh, that's a lot of questions in one. Okay, give me one question in general.
Lawley Publishing. How about we'll start there?
Say that again.
What is Lawley Publishing?
Okay, sorry, you cut out a little bit.
No, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So Lawley Publishing, we strictly do children's books up through middle grade. We focus on clean, uplifting, empowering literature. Our goal is to really bring the magic back to childhood. So there's topics that we don't even consider. We're looking for books that have a good message or make kids feel good about themselves or about the world that they live in.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of what we try and put out.
Yeah, I'm certainly glad there are more publishers like you guys in the world. It can be hard to read lots of kids lit that is kind of depressing and sad. You want something uplifting sometimes.
Well, and that kind of gets us into the next question, is how we started Lawley Publishing. So Carrie's a writer and I'm an illustrator, and we had been working on our own project together. We knew that it was going to be difficult to find a publisher that was going to take the two of us as a team. That's not standard practice in the industry. There were also some things that we noticed in the industry that we didn't like. And one of them being that agents out there for children's books are actually looking for horror right now. That's like the genre they're looking for it. And that
felt wrong to us.
That just horrified us,
Kids have enough horror in their everyday lives. They need to escape to a place that feels better.
Under 12 horror it just doesn't seem the right place. So we started thinking about, what if we started our own publishing company and we ran it the way that we wanted, a little differently from industry standards and how we think a publishing company should be run, and really, gearing our focus towards our ideals. And here we are, a little over 3 years later, 3.5 years, and we're going strong and growing quickly. So
that's awesome. So did you guys start at the end of 2019 or in 2020?
So I should let you talk. Oh, you don't remember?
No, I know. It all just starts to blur together after a while, but it was funny. In the 2019 year that we started ramping up and getting rolling.
We published 4 books in 2019. So that was our first year releasing any books.
But of course you're working before that, right?
Yes.
There's the 2018 work that got you ready for the 2019 work to get things rolling.
Yeah. So I think we did 4 in 2019. 4. I think we did like 12 in 2020, and then it's I think doubled. 2022.
We're putting out almost a book a week now. Throughout the year.
That is very impressive growth. Congratulations.
Yeah, it went very fast.
And there are people that are looking for, this is what we found, is that there are people looking for putting the magic back in children's lives, and that don't want to cater to what the agencies are looking for. And not that that's the only thing they're looking for, but they do get told a lot what to do, and that's not really what they want to write.
Yeah, for sure. I've certainly seen that a lot in some of the reviews that we've done. It has tended a little bit more towards some darker children's literature. So glad to see that you guys are kind of focusing on the positive side. But so you talk a little bit about kind of the process before 2019 and kind of gearing everything up to publish your books. Obviously, it's a very extensive process, but can you tell me a little bit, maybe some highlights about what starting an independent publisher is like?
Sure. You have to cry a lot.
As mandatory.
Crying,
There's a lot of tears.
Oh goodness. We have taken and continue to take courses to help us better our processes, but a lot of it has been, you learn as you're going. How do we need to make this happen? What programs can we use? What companies do we need to get in contact with? And a lot of research and classes after we thought we were all done with school and and on with different parts of our life, and then we're jumping back in so that we can learn our industry, and it's ongoing.
It's a constant. It seems like every week we're putting in new procedures into place, or we're reaching out to new people,
fixing things we thought we were doing well before, but that process is obviously not working. So we need to figure out how to do it better, and adding people to our team. The first 2 years, it was just
the
Lara
two of
and
us.
Doing everything.
And that was difficult. It was a challenge, but as we've grown, we've had to add to our team. And now we have, I think, 12.
There's 12.
12
and we work with
on our team.
We could use double that, but but we're not ready to take that on. But we have a great team that we work with.
Yeah. I was looking at some of their bios. They all seem very knowledgeable and very experienced as well. It seems like you got a really great group.
We feel incredibly blessed.
And they care. That's the thing. They're not in this just to have a job. They really care about what we're doing and believe in our mission. And so that's a great way to work with people.
It makes a difference. Yeah.
That seems like it's a good benefit of being in the publishing industry. I feel like a lot of people who want to be in publishing are just so passionate about the books, which makes it a really unique place to work, in my opinion. Not that I have a lot of experience, but.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that makes our company different, is that we're not just publishers. Carrie's a writer and I'm an illustrator. And so we've worked those different aspects of the business. We know what it's like for an author to go through that editing process and to have their work torn apart, and have to piece it back together. And we know.
I see the look on your face.
Yeah.
You felt that pain.
I have felt that pain. I know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, for an illustrator to have done all their work, and then for the author to come back and say, well, I really don't like this. Can we change this? And, one image is 20, 30 hours of work that's, down the drain. So we have that experience that we bring to the table. I think it makes us a little more sensitive to, those touchy areas and just in how we do things differently.
Yeah, for sure. So since you both have kind of that, I want to say personal experience with publishing a book, what were some of, I guess there were, I'm sure, plenty of aspects of publishing that you didn't know about, which is probably why you turned to some of the courses. So if you don't mind me asking, what were some of the courses that you both took? I know some of the more popular ones are the Denver Publishing course and the Columbia and NYU one, but were there more?
Ours has been more piecemeal as we've taken different conferences and reached out to personal contacts that we know and had some one-on-one instruction from them. So that's been really helpful.
It's learning more the programs that we use on a day-to-day basis to create the books.
Lots of online tutorials.
Lots of online tutorials.
I don't know who has time to put those together, but
they're great.
Thank
goodness for YouTube nowadays. It's fabulous.
Okay.
But also immersing ourselves in our own area of study. So like Carrie continues to go to writers' conferences to learn more about her craft, and I am constantly looking for new artists and new styles and trying to better my work. It's really like an overall.
Life is just school, all the time, right?
Pretty much life.
But we have found, a lot of the frustrations that we can run into have to do with technology as we're trying to work in a program and we can't get it to do what we need it to do. And I've found that there's pretty much always somebody else who's had that problem. You know, where we feel so frustrated, but when you start researching, you can find somebody else that has tackled it, that has reached out, that has asked the question, and you can get that clarification. So
yeah. There always is that moment, like that aha moment when you find the exact YouTube video that
and knowing that you weren't the first one to encounter this problem, and thank goodness someone else had to do it first.
Yeah, and thank goodness they made a video about it.
Exactly.
I'm always so grateful for that. But that's really interesting that you kind of did a lot of your own personal study, because I think that sometimes, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak for your experiences, but it seems like a lot of times people can kind of see those bigger publishing houses as barriers of entry because they're so expensive and you have to have a lot of credentials. So do you think there were any big barriers of entry that you faced? And I mean, aside from the education aspect of it.
All the time.
I'm laughing inside because the whole experience of creating a publishing company was overwhelming. And that was the barrier for us. It wasn't something we had planned to do at this stage in our life. And so to jump into that, to decide to jump into this and create our own business was incredibly scary. You know, we are not exactly in the prime of our life here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, our kids are all older. We have grandkids. You know, this is the time when, this is the time when we should be like stepping away from work and really spending time with our families. And that's kind of how we kind of did things reverse. You know, we spent a lot of our earlier years with our family, and now we're kind of pursuing our own interests outside of our kids. They're still a huge part of our everyday life, and we spend a lot of time with them. That's another thing, is finding work and family balance.
I'm sure.
But along with that, you know, with there's always the good and the bad, right? It's hard to find the balance, but we also have the flexibility to work until midnight if we need to, so that we can go to the park in the afternoon.
You're sharing our secrets.
Just don't look at what time our emails come through.
Yeah.
Schedule send is my personal best friend.
Yes. Yeah. But the whole thing was just, it was scary. It was frightening to start something at this point. And I'm so incredibly grateful that we had each other to do this. I don't think either one of us
think we would have done it on
our own. There was so much involved.
Sometimes we're both feeling overwhelmed, and just knowing that you're not the only one that's overwhelmed with a situation helps. And sometimes we take turns.
Yeah.
And so
sometimes one of us is talking the other one down, like, it's okay. Like, we can get through it. It's just this list, and then it'll get better. Yeah. And then our list won't be so long. That's never quite the case. But and we also have incredibly supportive family. Like, they have been there every step of the way. They are encouraging. They are excited for our business. And so that has been a huge help to us.
Yeah, that's amazing. And honestly, I love that. I love that you kind of flipped the script and did things a little bit differently. I would have never assumed that you both were grandmothers. That's very lots of family to deal with. I can barely keep up with schools as it is. So it's very impressive what
it's another thing that pushed us to want to do what we're doing, because when you're watching as a parent, you will do things for your kids. As a grandparent, you will do 1,000 times more. You know, we want a good world for our grandkids to grow up in, and everybody's grandkids. And so putting good literature into the hands of children is really our whole goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's very inspiring. I love that. I think that'll be the quote for this interview. It's a great quote. But well, on that note, since you do spend obviously a lot of time kind of choosing what literature that you do publish. What is the most important aspect of working with an author, and what do you look for in an author that comes to Lawley Publishing?
There's not really,
that's a different question. We haven't gotten that one before.
And there's not, of course, there's not really one thing, but
everyone's unique and has their own personality.
In every single relationship we have with an author or illustrator is completely different. So it's hard.
And in this industry, when you're working with authors and illustrators, we're all creatives.
Yeah.
And creative people, in my opinion, have kind of different quirky personalities. They're kind of my people. Like I just am drawn to those quirky personalities. Those creative people who are, talk to characters in their head, or are always doodling or imagining these grand new worlds. But
I think as an author and probably as an illustrator, so correct me if I overstep here, but you have to find the right balance to be humble enough to take critique that's offered to you, and strong enough to stand on your own and say, thanks for telling me that. This is how I want to do it. And finding that right way, because a lot of first-time authors, when they join a writing group, we find that they think the writing group is the be all end all. They know everything, and they're constantly changing their story to meet what the writing group wants it to be. And there comes a point where they finally realize, no, this is my story, and I'm going to take your comments and evaluate them and decide which ones I want to incorporate into my story. But you can't shut everything out. There's some valuable information that you can get. You just have to
decide what criticism am I going to take? And that it's still my story. Like, if you've taken everyone's criticism and changed your story and it's not yours anymore, then, you've lost that connection to your own work.
Yeah.
And we don't want that. And so when we work with our authors and illustrators, we will sometimes offer opinions, like, okay, we think that it should look like this, or it should, sometimes with the editing, we have content criticism or suggestions, but we tell them, like, if you do not agree with this, you need to speak up and let us know, because this is just our opinion. It's not the world's opinion. And this, essentially your work.
There's very few times we draw a hard line. I mean, obviously with grammar and punctuation, you need to, but I know that some of the bigger publishing houses, they will change a main character's name, or their something about their personality, or an ailment that they might have, because, oh, we don't want them to have anxiety. We want them to have autism or something. And that's not where the writer was coming from. So we feel like that's overstepping, and we don't want to take that away from our authors.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I never even thought about that perspective, but it's really important to maintain the original message of the author. And I'm really glad that you both prioritize that.
Yeah, we don't want to take that away at all.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's huge. Well, you have my mind working there. So I have two-part questions for you now. So the first one is, have you ever encountered that point where you had to kind of draw a hard line? And obviously you certainly don't have to tell details, but just kind of, how did you deal with that? And how did you work with that author to kind of overcome that boundary?
I think that's one of the hardest things about owning your own business, is you have to be the bad guy sometimes. And
neither one of us likes to be the bad guy.
I don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I want everyone to feel happy and smell flowers and just, see rainbows. I think that would be great.
Rainbows and unicorns.
Yeah, that'd be great. But there have been times where we have, whether it's in contract negotiations, that we've had to walk away and say, this isn't going to be a good fit, or there have been times where we've had to draw a hard line with someone about, in one instance, it was a title that they wanted for their book, and the title did not match our standards, the book was fine, but they wanted a different title, and we went head to head on it.
Yeah.
But ultimately what it comes down to is we are the publisher, and we want to put our best foot forward as well as your best foot forward. And so sometimes you just have to.
Yeah, that's one thing we're not willing to negotiate on is the standards of what we put out. So if it goes against our standards, then it's just a no. At other times, like contract negotiations, we're small, we're new, we're still learning, but there are some things, that the bigger companies will do in their contracts that we don't feel are necessary, or
we won't do,
or it's our business, or we just won't.
This is our contract.
And that's kind of foreign to an author who has been in the business for a long time. They're used to a certain procedure or standard out there, and we don't really follow that. And for some longtime authors, it's refreshing, and for some, it's just like, I don't understand this. I can't work with this. And we're like, okay, that's your prerogative, and you are free to go elsewhere. And we're happy, to have you go find someone else who's willing to do that for you. But we haven't had a lot of those experiences.
We have not.
It's really been rare. So.
Oh, good. Hopefully we won't have many more, but it's interesting to hear how you would handle it. So, and this was the second part of my question, but you kind of have been mentioning a little bit about kind of the traditional publishing industry. I'm curious to see what experience you both have with that industry, and if you have extensive experience, what problems with the traditional publishing industry you've had.
There's a lot of positives with it, and we certainly don't want to make it out like it's the big bad wolf. It isn't. We believe that every story has its journey, and for some it's the big publishing house, for some it's self-publishing, for some it's small house publishing. It really is just what's right for that story and that author at that time. We have spent quite a bit of time talking with authors that we work with, some that have published in all three of those ways, and that prefer small house publishing. We have some leeway that they don't have. Yeah. We like to work collaboratively with our authors and illustrators as a team to put their book together. Big houses do not have the manpower or the time to do that we have the privilege to do that. So they'll just assign an illustrator, and an author might not even know what their illustrations are going to look like until they get the book. And then does it even match what they had in their head when they wrote it?
We met with an author and illustrator this morning on a new book we're collaborating on, and both the author and the illustrator have been in the industry for a long time. They've published with big publishing houses, and the author said to us, "Oh, I've never been in this kind of meeting before. I've never been asked what my vision is of the book. I've never had the choice to pick out my illustrator, and then to sit down, the four of us, and talk about, what do you see in your book? What do you want the illustrator to portray?" And to really go back and forth. That's missing a lot in the larger house.
But I can see why they don't do it.
Yeah,
it takes us a lot of time to do that.
There's a lot of meetings, a lot of time put forth towards that. But that's one of the experiences that makes us different here, is that we do work collaboratively with them.
And another thing that can be difficult for first-time authors is the big houses want you to have a huge following already on social media before they will sign you. Yeah. But how do you have a huge following if you don't have anything out yet? And how can you get something out with them if you don't have it? So it puts people in a conundrum, because they just shut down. They shove the story into a drawer and they walk away and do something else with their life, because they don't know where to go or what to do.
How to even begin.
And we do require our authors and illustrators to help market their stories the same as the big houses do. We do require that they have a social media presence, but we understand that they need time to build that and to grow it. And you can't just automatically have 10,000 followers before you submit a book to get published. That can be extremely difficult.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting. I've heard a lot about that with the big publishers, but it's interesting to hear it from your perspective. So I guess, that seems like it's one of the best perks of your job, being able to work really closely with your authors and illustrators to help bring the vision of the book to life in the best way possible. So do you hope that Lawley Publishing will move from a small publisher to a medium or large size publisher? Or do you think you kind of want to keep it smaller so that you can still have these really intimate connections with your authors and illustrators?
We've actually talked about this quite a bit, and we didn't know what we wanted when we started. Other than we felt very strongly that we had to start this company. You can hear the dinner bell going off in the background. That's lovely. We have grown so much in such a short amount of time that we are considered more a medium house now with the amount of books that we release per year. And as busy as we are on a day-to-day basis, we both do not want to give up that personal relationship we have with our authors and illustrators. We really enjoy the meetings that we sat in. The meeting I was talking about earlier, it was supposed to be an hour-long meeting, and we spent the first 40 minutes just chatting and learning about the illustrator's dog. And and finally we're like, well, now we have 20 minutes to conduct this meeting because we have another meeting at 10 o'clock. We just really enjoy those personal relationships that we have with our authors and illustrators, and we're just not willing to give that up. So we don't know exactly where we're headed in regards to how big this company is going to get. I think as long as we are able to still have those relationships, still feel like we have a personal hand in selecting each book and working on each book, and then the sky's the limit. I don't know. Do you feel any differently there?
I think the one thing that we've learned is that to be flexible and to not be set in our ways, because a lot of people, when they start a company, they know exactly, like, this is the company I'm going to have. It's going to have this amount of growth, and I expect to see this. And that's not how we were led into this. The whole thing has been a big surprise journey for us the whole time, every day. So that's true. So we have things we love about it, and what we think in our mind that it will do, but it's always changing. And so, but I don't see us being a huge, big, I think we would be sad if we got so huge that we couldn't have those relationships.
I agree.
Yeah. That's awesome. I really love that. Well, since I did hear the dinner bell, I will be mindful of your time, and I do only have 2 more questions for you that I think we can probably hit really quickly. So with all of the information that you've told me about running your publishing company, a lot of us at Pine Reads Review are aspiring publishing professionals. So what advice would you have for us to get into the industry? I should clarify.
We had this question on Saturday.
Well, but is it to get into it from the author side, or to get into it from the publisher side?
Let's say from the publisher side.
I have no idea.
Hey.
You know what? That is the most honest answer we could have told you.
We didn't do it that way. So
we did things very untraditionally. We didn't go to school to become publishers, to be in this field. We both kind of fell into it and then just decided to start our company. So
we laugh all the time because we are really proud of the procedures that we put into place, because we know what it was like before we had those procedures. Yeah. And sometimes we sit back and we're like, that's so cool. Look how we track that, or how, and then we think, if somebody walked in here from a big publishing house, would they laugh or would they be impressed? I don't know.
No idea. we just we don't have any other experience besides our own publishing company, you know, on the inner workings of a publishing house. So we just have our own experience and knowledge. I think the biggest thing that we're looking for when we're looking for employees is just that it's a love of literature. Obviously, that's a big one. But for us, because we have a very special goal in regards to children, it's finding people who have that same goal. Yeah. Like
that's a good point.
We are really looking for people who care about children, who, you know, they don't necessarily have to have children of their own, but how do they feel about our future generations, you know, and what's being put out there into the public to read. I think that's our biggest thing we're looking for when we are hiring new employees, is just what is their mindset, and do their ideals fall in line with what our company stands for.
And I would say know your strengths as much as you possibly can, and don't be afraid of those, because like the last person that we interviewed, we asked them one interview question. One. The only question we asked was, what can you bring to the table? That's all we wanted to know.
And to be honest, we didn't even know what we were hiring this person for. They approached us and said, I'd like to work for your company. And we said, it was that question, you know, what can you bring to the table? Yeah. And within 15 minutes, we were like, and you're hired.
Wow. So know your strengths, you know that you obviously be aware that you have weaknesses. We all do. And we all have ways that we can grow. But if you're presenting yourself to a company, they want to know, what are you bringing? What are your strengths, and how can you help us?
Just be confident in them. And that's actually a lesson that we've had to learn.
Did we learn that?
I don't know. We're still learning that.
Just checking.
It's starting a company and doing something to this scale is very scary. It's very frightening. And I think most people, you know, have moments when their self-worth is just a little low, you know, and can I do this? And luckily we have each other to, you know, I boost her up, she boosts me up. And but really finding that confidence in our own abilities and realizing, you know what, no, I've got this. And for us, the company has naturally the jobs in our company have naturally just fallen to one or the other, depending on our own talents and skills. And it worked out incredible. Like, you know, like I'm the art department and Carrie's, you know, editing department. And like, it just naturally fell that way. And it's just been perfect. And I know that's not always the situation out there.
If we ever traded for a day, it would be a disaster.
I refuse. No, thank you. I like what I do. And I don't want your job. It just comes natural to us. But again, it's being confident in our own strengths and talents and skills, and being able to say, I can't do that. You know, we need to find someone else who can do that.
Yeah. Wow. That's really great advice. I will certainly pass that on to all of our Pine Reads interns. They will definitely listen to your wisdom. Well, the last thing I want to ask you guys before we do wrap up is any titles that we should be on the lookout for
all of them.
I was going to say, so once a week, we have a meeting where we go through every project that we're working on. Takes us hour and a half, but we focus in on that project. We, you know, check in, where are we at with the illustrations or the editing or this and that. And
I know what I'm going to show her.
We go through by quarters of a calendar year. And I closed up one quarter and went, gosh, I'm so excited for all these books. But we're always saying that because we get so excited about all of our titles, but there are some that stand out just because of the subject matter. And that's what I would have talked about too.
I just felt like this is the one I needed to share. Really, we have so many great books.
All of our books are amazing. We really think we really think that way, or else we wouldn't have published them. But this one has a very,
this one's different, and it's a
very
heavy
specific topic. Yeah.
And it was an interesting project with the author and illustrator. So it's called Tell Everyone, Break the Cycle of Child Abuse.
Silence of child abuse.
Break the silence of child abuse. And when this author came to us, it was very important to her what illustrator she worked with and the type of images that were portrayed in this, because she talks about physical, verbal, and sexual abuse. But most of the books out there just talk about the abuse side. And she wanted to show the contradiction to that, and to show that there is physical, verbal, and sexual kindness in a way that is appropriate to speak to children.
To children, yeah.
And if you think about that and what type of images would be put in that book, you don't want one gender or one race or one age.
And you also don't
stand out as, oh, this is all bad and this is all good, or, you know, you don't want those. You
also don't want images that will trigger trauma with kids who have experienced abuse. And so there were a lot of meetings involved in the process of this book, meeting with the author and the illustrator, and us,
meeting with
talking
counselors,
about every single page, every single image.
So
we're really, this came out
in April,
about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's our heaviest book topic to date, but we're really,
it has a positive message, is the thing. And so
it's a book we feel every parent, every teacher, every counselor should have and share with their children. I feel that way about my adult children. Like, I want them to read it. It's just an important subject that needs to be discussed and shared. And
if you want to talk to this author, she would be lovely to talk to.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It's her birthday today.
It is her birthday today. See, these are the things we get to know.
Yes.
Because we work closely with them. So
yeah, that's amazing. Well, I will certainly check that out. That looks absolutely incredible. And I love the subject matter. Definitely something to discuss. And I appreciate that you focus on the positives, you know, trying to figure out a way to help
opposites that, you know,
well, and it's the book,
this is bad, but something good can,
this will be a different marketing for us. You know, all of our other marketing has been how fun a book is and what adventure and journey and imaginative story it can take you on. And this book is very different. But it's the book we feel like every family needs, whether they think they want it or not.
Yeah. So. Well, that's amazing. Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out. I will purchase that very soon, but I will be keeping an eye out for all of your other books. It seems like you both are.
We have some great titles coming. So yeah,
it seems like it. I mean, I've already read Curious World of Dandelion by the
love that book. We have a couple other chapter books coming out in the next couple of months that are just fabulous. So.
Well, if they're anything like that one, I'm sure they will be a favorite of mine. So, well, thank you both so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful to learn all about Lawley Publishing and the two of you. And I hope to be in contact soon.
We would love to talk to you soon. All right.
Wonderful. Well, have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.